Hi everyone and welcome back to the Kenwood Kids Club. If it's your first time watching one of our videos, don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button down there on the right, and why not click on the thumbs up icon as well to let me know that you're watching. In this week's episode, I'm going to show you how to make a recipe that has literally changed my life. I love pizza and I love making pizza from scratch, but I don't always have all of the ingredients in the cupboard so that I can make it whenever I want. So there are certain things that you usually use to make pizza, so a particular type of flour known as Toppings 0, which is a very, very fine flour. Various other bits and pieces, to be honest, but I wanted to come up with a recipe for a pizza dough in particular that you could make just using ingredients that you might already have on hand in your house already, particularly if you're someone that does a lot of baking. So to make this recipe, all you are going to need is some normal plain flour that we use all the time in our videos here. You're going to need a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt, some olive oil, some water, and then some of this fast action instant dry yeast, which comes in little sachets of 7 grams, and we need 7 grams, so these are perfect. You can just pop these in the cupboard and they're there whenever you need them. To make it, all you're going to need is a very large bowl, like this one here, and that's about it. Before we start making it though, there's one thing we're going to do in advance, and that is pop our baking sheets, because we have two, into our oven to preheat. So the oven is already preheating, and I've got it set to 220 degrees fan. So that's 240 degrees if you're using a normal conventional oven, or gas mark 8, which is very high. So pop your baking trays in there to warm up as well, and then we can get cracking. To make your pizza dough, all you need to do is take your plain flour and pour it into your very large bowl. And then we're going to add in some sugar and some salt. The last thing that's going to go in here first of all is that fast action instant dried yeast. Now I'm going to put this on the same side as the sugar because I don't want it to meet the salt first. Yeast is actually kind of like a living organism, and we've talked about this here on the channel before. What it does is it reacts with the other ingredients that we put in our mixture here to create gases, which give us our lovely rise when we're making any type of yeasted dough. Now, yeast loves sugar, which is why we've put sugar in here, because it gives the yeast something to eat to help that reaction happen. Yeast doesn't like salt, but if you make bread without salt, it tastes of pretty much nothing. So salt is really important, but we're going to try not to just throw the yeast straight into the salt, just to help things along. That being said, the next step is we're going to give everything a bit of a mix. I don't make these rules, I just follow them. Once you've done that, we're going to make a well in the centre, and those of you that have been watching our videos for a while will know that that means we're basically going to dig a little hole. It might be quite hard for you to see that on camera, but basically I've just made a little hole right in the centre of that dry mixture there, and into that I'm going to pour in my olive oil and my water. And now's the fun bit, because this is where we get messy, because what we want to do is start bringing these ingredients together. Now you can use your fingers if you'd like, or if you'd prefer, you can start things off with a normal dinner knife and then get in with your fingers once it started to become a little bit more combined. So I'm just pulling those dry ingredients from the edge into the middle, and they'll start to come together to form some big kind of clumpy bits. Now the great thing about this recipe, as well as not needing you to have a special type of flour indoors, is it doesn't really require much kneading either. So normally when we're making a bread dough, we knead it for about 10 minutes. But for this dough, as you'll see in a second, we're only going to knead it for around about a minute. It still works, I promise you. So hopefully you can see that my dough is starting to come together into a biggish clump. So I'm just going to scrape off that knife, and then I'm going to dive in with my fingers. Say my fingers, that's my whole hand. I'm going in with my whole hand, and I'm just squishing that dough into the bowl to make sure it's picked up all of those ingredients. Now this mixture will still be quite sticky, but that's okay, because as we work it, it will become less sticky. So just making sure I've picked up all of those ingredients, and then this can get transferred onto the worktop. I can put that bowl out of the way. Now, as I say, it doesn't need much kneading, only about a minute, because I want to make sure that all of this kind of textury bits on the surface of my dough are nice and smooth. So to do my kneading, I'm just going to push my dough out and then fold it back on itself. Push it out again, fold it back on itself, and then you can rotate it a bit and just keep doing that for around about a minute. Of course, if you have a stand mixer, you can do this in the stand mixer using the dough hook. But I quite like kneading. I find it quite therapeutic. It makes me just kind of relax and chill out for a little bit. So, just for about 1 minute, and then we can carry on. After about 1 minute, you should find that your dough is looking a little bit smoother, and also it's not as sticky. So hopefully you can see it's not sticking to my hands. And this would normally be where you would put your dough in an oiled bowl and leave it for an hour to prove, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to pop it on the worktop. We're going to grab that giant ball back in. I'm just going to turn it over and put it on top of our dough. And then we're just going to leave that to rest for about 5 minutes. Now, when we're kneading dough, what we're doing is we're stretching out a type of protein called gluten. And that gluten is the thing that gives us that nice bready texture that we want when we're making a bread-based dough. Because we've stretched it out so much, it then gets really, really tight. So what we need to do is leave it to rest so it can relax a little bit. So by popping it in there under the bowl for about 5 minutes, you should find it will get a lot softer again, and we'll be able to carry on making our pizza bases with it. While it's resting for 5 minutes, this is the perfect time to get your toppings ready. So you're going to need some sort of pizza sauce, and don't forget we have a recipe right here on the channel for a hidden veg pizza sauce, a great way to get extra vegetables into your diet. You're going to need some cheese and whatever toppings you fancy putting on your pizza. So I'm going to go and get all my toppings together, and then we'll carry on. Once your dough has been resting for around about 5 minutes, you can take the bowl off again, and you should find it's a lot softer than it was before. Now, if it's stuck to the worktop, don't worry, just pull it off, and you should be able to scoop up any leftover dough that's stuck there with the ball. And then this is actually enough dough to make 2 pizza bases. So I'm just going to kind of shape it into a rough sausage shape, find the middle, and then I can just pull it into 2 bits. Now, I'm only going to work with 1 right now, but you can make 2 full-size pizzas with this dough. So I'm going to put the other piece over there, back onto the bowl until I'm ready to use it, and we're going to carry on with this half here. Now, what we're going to do is try and shape it into a rough circle. And of course, traditionally in Italy, they do that by hand. But don't worry, we're not going to do that today, unless of course you want to give it a try. I've got my rolling pin here, and I'm just going to use that to start things off. So just rolling it in one direction, then the other direction, and you should find, because we gave it that time to rest, it shouldn't be too kind of tight anymore, so it shouldn't pop back in as much as it would have done otherwise. Now, don't panic if you can't get it full size just by rolling it, because in a moment we're going to transfer it onto some semolina. And semolina is a fantastic ingredient with pizza, because not only does it stop it sticking in the oven, but it also makes it even more crispy. So with your rolling pin, you want to shape it towards being around about 30 centimeters in diameter, which is roughly the same length as one of your school rulers. So hopefully that should help you guess how big it needs to be. Don't worry if you tear it at all, you can just squish the dough back together. It's very forgiving. And also don't worry if it's not a perfect circle, because actually That's one of the fun things about homemade pizzas, is they don't need to be perfect. They just need to taste good. So this is getting quite big already, and you can see that I'm just picking up, moving it around. You can stretch it a bit more with your fingers if you need to go a bit more in a certain direction. Mine definitely isn't round yet. Once you're almost at 30 centimeters in diameter, pop your dough to one side, just very quickly, and grab some baking paper. You need a big square piece about the same sort of size as your baking trays. And if it decides it wants to roll up, just use something to weight it down in the corners. Grab some semolina, and I like to use fine semolina, but you can use the kind of the more coarse stuff if you prefer. And just grab a large pinch and pop it onto your baking paper. Then you can grab in your pizza dough, place it on top, and then you'll find that it doesn't stick to the paper because of that semolina, meaning you can continue to stretch it out just using your hands. Once you're happy with the size and shape of your pizza, it's time to add our toppings. We're going to start with pizza sauce. Now I've actually made a really simple pizza sauce today, which has just got some crushed tomatoes, the ones in a tin. It's got some dried oregano, it's got some fresh basil, a little bit of onion powder, salt and pepper, and that is it. It's absolutely delicious. So I'm going to put about 3 tablespoons onto my pizza base. And I'm just going to use the back of that tablespoon measure to spread that sauce around. Now remember not to go all the way to the edge, because we want to leave ourselves a little bit of a crust. Once your sauce is on, it's time for some cheese. And top tip here, it can be very tempting to want to add loads and loads of cheese to your pizza, especially if you're a massive cheese fan like me. But you don't want to put too much, because otherwise it will make your pizza base go soggy rather than crispy. So I've measured out 130 grams of a combination of mozzarella and cheddar cheese, and I'm going to use about half of that on this pizza base, and then I'll save the other half for the other pizza base. And then on top of that, it's time to add your toppings, and I'm going to be using some pepperoni today, and in fact I found a meat-free pepperoni that we're going to try. If you're somebody who doesn't eat meat, this is a really simple way to make your pizza perfect for a meat-free diet. It's actually vegan as well, so if you're somebody who only eats plant-based, then you can try that as well. And simply switch out the cheese for a plant-based alternative. On top of my toppings, I'm just going to grab a little pinch of some more dried oregano, and just sprinkle that over the pizza, and I'm also going to do the same thing again with some freshly ground black pepper. Now this is an optional final step which you don't have to do, but I like to just grab a little bit more olive oil and a little pastry brush, and I use that to just go around the edge, because it's going to help my crust get even more crispy and delicious. So again, you don't have to do that, but you can if you would like to. And then once you've done that, you can just leave your pizza to rest for around about 10 to 15 minutes, and then it will be time to put it in the oven. This is usually the perfect time to make your other pizza with the rest of your dough. So I'll see you in about 10 to 15 minutes. Once your pizza has had time to rest for around about 10 to 15 minutes, it's time to put it in the oven, and you're going to need an adult to help you with this bit, because we need to get those baking trays out of the oven where they've been preheating, and they will be very, very hot. So please do ask your adult to do this bit for you, and I'll show you a really easy way for them to transfer your pizza onto your tray. So here's my baking tray, and I can feel even through this cloth that it is very, very hot. So I'm going to place it down on the worktop, or if you have a trivet, which is something that keeps a hot pan off a worktop, you can use that too. And then just grab the paper and slide the tray underneath. And it's as easy as that. This is still very hot though, so again, your adult will then need to take this for you and pop this back into that preheated oven for around about 10 to 15 minutes. You're looking for the cheese to all have melted and started to go a lovely golden colour, and of course your base around that crust should also be looking a lovely golden colour too. So I'm going to put mine in the oven and then it will be time to see how it's turned out. And after only about 10 to 15 minutes, there is my beautiful homemade pizza using that super quick pizza dough. I'm sure you will agree, it looks absolutely delicious. We've got this lovely golden colour around here on that crust. The cheese is all melted and gone that lovely golden colour, and the smell is absolutely amazing. Now, of course, the tray it is on is still super hot, so when it comes to taking it out of the oven and taking the pizza off the tray, do make sure you get your adult to do that bit for you. But then you can just slide your pizza off, just like that, still using that paper, and then it is ready to be cut up and served. So I've just transferred mine onto a little chopping board, and then I've got my big knife which I'm going to use to cut it into slices. And a good way to do that is if you cut it in half first of all, in fact this is a lot easier if you have a pizza wheel, and then cut those halves in half into quarters, and then cut those in half into eighths, you then get really nice, easy to handle slices of pizza. So there's halves, quarters, and then eighths. Now the great thing about this is not only is it super speedy, but it's actually really fun to do as well. So if you've got friends coming around for a party or a sleepover, this is the perfect thing that you can all make together and then have for your tea. And why not go back to 2 weeks ago's video and make one of those pull apart garlic breads as well. You've got all the makings of the perfect pizza party. But it's time for my favourite part of every video. We're going to give this a try. It's still really hot. Delicious. I promise you, you would not know that this was a super quick pizza dough. It tastes just as good as the real thing. And the best part is I made it myself as well. So if you fancy giving my super quick pizza dough recipe a go, head down to the video description where you will find the full list of ingredients. And of course, if you would like to find the full written out method of the recipe, just click on the link and that will take you straight to the Kenwood Kids Club website where you will find it written out in full. While you're there, if you're not already a member, don't forget to sign up, because not only will you get your own membership card featuring my face, but you'll also be eligible to enter our Star Baker of the Month competition every single month, where we choose one person to win their very own Kenwood mixer and their Kenwood Kids Club goodie bag. So your to-do list for the rest of this week: have a go at my pizza recipe, take a photo, upload it to the Kenwood Kids Club website, and who knows, I could be announcing you as our Star Baker of the Month for August. Now I'm going to wrap this video up here, mainly because I want to eat the rest of this pizza, but I will see you at the same time next week with a super fun and easy recipe. And we're going back to cake, so I know lots of you really enjoy the cake ones. But until then, as always, take care and happy baking. Bye everyone!